Entrepreneurially Thinking is a presentation of BioSTL and CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, with Rare Gem Productions, changing the way you view new ventures, including you on the pathway to success with your business in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. Here's your hosts, Cheryl and Christy. Now let's get thinking entrepreneurially.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast, where our goal is to energize your entrepreneurial mindset and create pathways for business success in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. I'm Christy Maxfield.
And I am Dr. Cheryl Watkins-Moore. Hey, Christy.
How are ya?
We're back. We're celebrating.
Yes, we are pretty sure that by the time you're listening to this, we will have our 1-year anniversary under our belt. We'll be at or above 12,000 plays and downloads. Woo-hoo! And we just want to thank you for your support and for spreading the word. We encourage you and others to find us on iTunes or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Subscribe, stay connected, help us help others think entrepreneurially and step outside their comfort zone.
Yes.
So one of the many ways that folks in St. Louis are stepping outside of their comfort zones, in addition to listening to our podcast, of course, is that we have an annual event here that Dr. Cheryl Watkins-Moore was responsible for spearheading initially. And this year, the 2017 Vision Inclusion Symposium is on October 19th.
This is the only innovation inclusion event for our region.
It is. And it's going to be October 19th at the St. Louis Community College Flow Valley campus.
All day. We
have a whole day. We've been planning this for months. And our keynote speaker is going to be Lonnie Johnson, NASA scientist and inventor of the Super Soaker, among other things. So I know I'll be there, and Cheryl will be there, and we'd like all of you to be there with us. So if you're in the region, please come out and find us October 19th, St. Louis Community College, Flow Valley campus.
And it's really talking about innovation across science, IT, and manufacturing.
Yes.
So
we've got one-on-ones with entrepreneurs, we've got panel discussions, we've got opportunities to network and connect. So go to visionslouis.com and register today.
Yes.
And then when you're done with that, you can listen to this episode in full.
So today, yes, we are joined by Gary Stiehr. For nearly 20 years, Gary has been leading technology initiatives, participating in community tech efforts, and working on global scale technology projects.
Yes, he truly global.
He rocks. In 2012, he founded StampedeCon and hosted the first national big data conference of its kind right here in St. Louis,
Not
Missouri.
Silicon Valley, right here.
Yes, right here. And big data is huge. This field has exploded in the last 5 years. Everything from how data is generated, analyzed, and understood and it is constantly changing, and it is impacting industries far afield. Absolutely. As a result, today, StampedeCon hosts 3 conferences. StampedeCon having added the StampedeCon IOT, which is the Internet of Things Summit in 2016, and the new StampedeCon Artificial Intelligence Summit on October 17th, right before Vision.
Yes, it's going to be a great week. You go to StampedeCon, then you go to Vision, then maybe you take a nap,
and then
have
you
a little
get a beer, right?
It's all good.
It's chilling time afterwards. So we're going to be talking with Gary to learn more about how these affordable events connect those who are interested in better understanding and leveraging big data, IOT, and AI, and discussing what's next for these emerging fields. So stay listening.
Save the date and plan to attend. It's the 3rd annual Vision 2017 Symposium, St. Louis's premier inclusion innovation event for women, minorities, and immigrants. October 19th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. at St. Louis Community College, Florissant Valley. Network with local minority and female entrepreneurs and other small business owners. Participate in interactive workshops that will help you market your business idea or product. Get invaluable tools and tips on how to start your business or grow grow your existing one. Learn about small business and entrepreneurial opportunities in the high-growth industries of science, information technology, and manufacturing. You don't want to miss out. This symposium is a collaboration of BioSTL, CET, St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, St. Louis Community College, St. Louis Makes, the St. Louis Mosaic Project, Black Entrepreneur Weekend, and I-10. And we are very excited to announce we have Mr. Lonnie Johnson, African-American engineer and inventor of the Super Soaker water gun, as well as a U.S. Air Force and NASA engineer. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to attend. Just bring your curiosity. Vision 2017, forging a strong, equitable path in innovation and inclusion. October 19th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. at St. Louis Community College, Flow Valley. To register and for more information, go to visionstlewis.com.
Hi, this is Gary Stiehr from StampedeCon in St. Louis, Missouri. Entrepreneurially thinking to me means listening to that passion that you know you have inside and going ahead and moving forward with it. Share that idea with somebody, take a few steps to move forward with your idea and build upon it. Work with other people to build and create that great idea and make your community a better place.
So, Gary, thank you for making time to be with us today. Can you start by telling us a little bit more about yourself? As Cheryl mentioned, you've worked on global projects. So can you give us an idea of sort of some of the things you've worked on? And then how did you come to decide, you know what, my life's not busy enough, I'm going to start a new conference?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Christy and Cheryl, for inviting me to join your podcast.
Thanks.
And congratulations on 1 year.
Thank
That's
you.
incredible.
Thanks for joining us. We're really excited.
It's my pleasure, and I think, getting the word out about, I think having people really discover what's possible is very important because each person does have so much potential. It's just a matter of taking a little bit of action, and so your podcast is very important to help people realize the possibility, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you asked me about, why did I get started with StampedeCon, and really it's just a series of events. I went to a conference actually years ago about high-performance computing, which is what my background is in.
I was going to ask you, what is your background to be able to put this conference on? Tell us about your background first.
Well, it kind of evolved slowly over time. I had a computer science background and started working in information technologies and administering servers and so on. And actually, I was approached at the time at the University of Missouri at St. Louis, or UMSL for those local, and they had read an article about NASA taking just old abandoned PCs that were being retired from the desktop and networking those, and then running computations in parallel as an affordable way of essentially doing a supercomputing-like application without the expense. And so that's where I first got introduced to working with high-performance computing and parallel computations in general.
And that's where you got this cool T-shirt he's wearing now that says NASA.
I am a big fan.
So, and forgive us, but high-performance computing, the only other time I've heard that phrase has been like high-performance race cars. So is there a parallel there, or to the novice, what is high-performance computing?
Yeah, essentially it was summed up in using multiple computers simultaneously to do a computation.
So getting them all hooked up, and the thing they're doing is in tandem trying to solve one equation.
Yeah, or any number of problems. And generally, if someone had a bigger research question, they may run it a long time in their office. And so what we went is around campus and said, we can help you potentially, depends on the problem, split that up and run across multiple computers simultaneously and save some time and or let you ask larger questions and determine those possibilities. And
so the culmination of all these computers running to solve the same question or problem, you mentioned it becomes more efficient in solving the problem?
Yeah, that's right. It's essentially, if you can do 10 computations per hour in one computer, and depending on how loosely coupled those computations are, you could potentially split it across.
And it's not repeating the same process from each computer, right? It's additive. Right.
It may be, you might have 10 different cases to compute, and you can potentially do 10 in parallel. I mean, there's definitely a lot of different types of use cases.
That's interesting.
One example that's a little bit more tightly coupled was something that was called ray tracing commonly in those early days of showing that, but that was something that's used to make some of the animated movies now. Basically, underlying those are complex physics libraries and other things that are running, but the computation can take a long time because you place lights in different areas of a scene, and then they want to see the light reflect off of the surfaces to make it look more realistic.
So Pixar is using probably this.
Right.
Everybody knows Pixar.
There we go.
Exactly. So underneath all of those great movies, there's some computational clusters running, and years ago that was known as high performance computing. And so kind of fast forward a little bit into a conference, I saw its applications in industry as well, where there were simulations of manufacturing lines, manufacturing or simulating manufacturing systems and how quickly could they move something through, and they could simulate that in real life. But then they might have product fly off of the conveyor belt.
That would not be good, right?
There was ways to simulate that and run it, but it was computationally intense. So there was another use case. So I said, well, there's a lot of stuff going on in St. Louis from a manufacturing standpoint. And, of course, there's a lot of academic research use cases. So we said, I was telling this to someone, they said, you should start an event. And so we started having some ad hoc events around high-performance computing, one of which was eventually about high-performance data analytics. And this was about the time, there was a lot of interest in that, and it was about the time the term big data was getting more and more popular with software like Hadoop, and there's many other ones like this that became freely downloadable that would manage these parallel computations much more easily than it was possible before. You know, a lot of that was pioneered at the time from, Hadoop in particular was released from Yahoo at the time when they were analyzing a lot of data for search engines so that we could query. And of course, that continues to be these distributed type technologies for computation continues to power things behind Google and all the other things like that.
And in healthcare, big data is
part
huge.
Of our lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. How researchers even approach research now is different with the advent of big data, being able to help compute and get to solutions much faster than the human.
Data was always
do
there. It was the computing power that really changed. Is that correct?
Sometimes the data, sometimes it went hand in hand and one necessitated another. So to give you an example, when I worked at Washington University at the Genome Institute, at the time I came in right at the time when they were transitioning from one set of DNA sequencing technology to another technology that had been released recently that was able to do the actual DNA sequencing process much more quickly.
Wow.
And so this was actually generating a lot more data and a lot more information than was ever possibly ever previously available.
And it moves research along much quicker, too, because what might have taken you years to do some type of research and finding the right molecule or whatever, now you got big data helping to solve these problems. So you're taking, hopefully, the cost down and the efficiency up and getting to new technologies much faster, drug technologies.
Absolutely, and just making discoveries.
Yes.
So the idea with what they call whole genome sequencing was basically taking, with the older technology, they could only look at small portions of your DNA to see, to kind of prove hypotheses about what might be wrong. With what they call whole genome, they were actually looking at all of the DNA in a human cell to look at diseases like cancer. So they would take some DNA from your cancerous cells and some from, for those patients who were affected by this, and then some from their non-cancer cells. And so they would then run these through these DNA sequencers many times, generating trillions of data points. And that was enabled not only by the sequencing technology, but it wouldn't have been possible to even look at that much without the use of high-performance computing and big data tools.
So when we started the program, we mentioned, you founded this here in St. Louis, and we hear all this talk all the time about Silicon Valley and Silicon Prairie and, all of those wonderful Silicon references. So my understanding is people are coming from all over the country to be part of these conferences. Why St. Louis?
Yeah.
How St. Louis? And sort of, I'm just thrilled that it's still here and it hasn't been co-opted by anybody else. And but why is it so important to have this community of this learning community come together on a regular basis?
Well, my real motivation was not only an interest in these technologies, it's my background, my interest, and I'm also interested in doing my part to build up the St. Louis community, along with the many others who are contributing to that, and having a conference here in St. Louis rather than flying to where there might be a traditional market opportunity or something like that. It was an opportunity to help build up the knowledge here. But not only that, it was to help get the word out about all the great stuff that was already happening in St. Louis that oftentimes wasn't publicized. And there's a lot of that in St. Louis. So
can you give us an example? Not to put you on the spot too much, but to put you on the spot.
well, certainly all the medical advances from genomics that were available going on here at St. Louis at area universities, but then a number of research technologies just across different universities, whether it had been from an economic standpoint, looking at business logistics. There was things looking at plant genomics and all kinds of things going actively here in St. Louis that were powering businesses, coming up with new models, new logistical models for package deliveries, things like this that were happening in these research institutions that we wanted to be able to share.
So you're giving them a platform, in essence, of all the research, like you just said, new technologies, new companies that are being developed, and how they're using technology, correct?
Right, and
differently or similarly.
Well, and if you get the word out and you get people excited, commercializing technology becomes more likely. And I would imagine attracting and retaining talent also. If I have a community of other folks who are really good at what they do in this space, I'd want to stay around.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's very important, not only to show what's happening so people know the opportunities that they have right here in town without necessarily feeling that they need to go somewhere else. And that's part of bringing existing work out as the expert speakers at StampedeCon, but also helping for those who are looking to get into that field to be able to connect here locally with those experts and those who are traveling in, and those who are working at other organizations with those technologies that are attending.
I'm doing a lot of head nodding because I think that's really important, the community, that you're connecting individuals, just as you talked about, who are in the industry, who are maybe thinking about the industry in different ways. Are you touching not just adults? How are you engaging, our younger generation, because they are very much involved with the whole technology revolution? How are you guys engaging that, or are you?
I can't say that our particular agendas that we have at the conferences are necessarily suitable outside of the professional area right at the moment. But, I certainly hope that as we move forward with that and have more professionals in the area, that they're able to share that in their different contexts around St. Louis.
That's great, yeah. Because I think there's a huge, to have it here in St. Louis and not in Silicon Valley, I think is huge.
And it's feasible because the technology is here, right? And so reminding people that the technology is homegrown, the innovations are homegrown, and the talent is here, that's huge. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, sort of talk about the evolution of StampedeCon, because it's changed a lot since it was first created. We'll be right back.
Miller Prost, CPAs and Business Advisors, is the proud sponsor of today's Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast, offering a full range of professional tax, audit, accounting, and consulting services. Learn more at millerprost.com. MUELLERPROST.com. Miller Prost, CPAs and Business Advisors, advising with vision.
Hi, I'm Didier Chasson, Program Coordinator at Global Hack, and I am also a coder girl in the web development track. And to me, entrepreneurially thinking, I wish it were called entrepreneurially thinking/doing. For me, it's all about the thinking and then translating it to doing. Decide that something needs to be done in the morning, or, think about it in the morning, and then it's done by the time you go home. Just making things happen.
So, Gary, 2012 is not that long ago. And yet, you've already expanded StampedeCon from 1 to 3 separate conferences. What's happened in the last 5 years that we now have StampedeCon, Big Data, AI, and remind me what the third one is, my friend.
The IoT Summit.
The IoT Summit. Oh, Internet of Things. How could I forget that, right? So we now have 3 StampedeCons to take advantage of. What changed?
Well, really, it's just the general market has changed. And, 5 years ago, big data really had been rolling for quite some time. And again, that's where we wanted to start the event, is to make sure to bring that into the organizations and community in St. Louis that weren't already taking advantage of it. We wanted to help broaden that topic here locally. Mm-hmm. But it had already been maturing and moving along in that curve. And so what we had seen at first is a growing interest in streaming data. So the data that would continue to be coming in, obviously there's a lot of mobile devices, and then there would continue to be connected devices going into the home. And now you see it even more than ever.
That Internet of Things thing.
Correct. And so that's become known as the Internet of Things. And, that's also been going strong for a while. And so the idea is to communicate out about what are the applications in different industries, especially those that are around St. Louis, that could be taking advantage of this, not only from what devices and sensors are available, but how do you handle the management of those devices that could be widespread across millions of households, depending on your industry.
Absolutely.
But then how do you handle getting that data into your infrastructure so that you can provide that value back to the end user for your particular business?
I'm trying to figure out how to handle my Fire Stick into my TV.
I'm sure somebody can help you. Right. Not me, but somebody can help you with
So I understand. I mean, things are changing.
You understand. That's cute.
We're going from Netflix now to
I know,
Fire
your world
Stick.
is blowing up.
It's blowing up.
Wait until you have more Internet of Things, and then some virtual and augmented reality.
Absolutely.
And, then artificial intelligence on top of it. Or,
yes. There's a lot of things moving.
And let me tell you about that. I mean, I think in reality, that's kind of what we have to think about it. I think there was a time when big data was seen as its own thing, and you had to have something about big data, and so some people didn't necessarily want to adopt it because they felt like it was just a buzzword or something like this. It's established what's currently a modern data architecture, is being able to handle a lot of different data sources and a lot of different data types, but for the purpose of adding some value back in. So from these devices that you're using in your home, that you're streaming Netflix and other types of services, those are all then powered by a lot of data analysis on what did you watch, what did other people watch along with those, and so on. And a lot of that is powered then by artificial intelligence is a large umbrella term that covers lots of different things, data science, machine learning, and there's more and different types of terminology that basically sum up how do I get the value out of all this data that I am collecting, whether it be streaming in from households or whether it just be your internal data that you need to take a look at.
So as a computer scientist, I'm sure it's thrilling to see all this. As a consumer, I'm both excited that they know that I'm going to binge watch XYZ program, for 12 hours at a stretch. I'm also a little freaked out that they now know that I love The Walking Dead and whatever else your guilty pleasure is. And then they can consequently make all sorts of other assumptions about my buying habits and my sleeping habits and my
becomes targeted marketing.
My habits. What do you see any pushback among professionals about where the limits are, or do you see that more as like folks like me who aren't necessarily in the biz, so to speak, but are seeing both the benefits and the potential pitfalls of all of this change?
Yeah, that's always a very important topic, and it takes all people to kind of voice their opinions and thoughts and desires on that. Obviously, from a technology side, I always feel like there should be a transparency from organizations about what they're doing with your data and what they're collecting from your data. And then from a consumer and end user perspective, thinking about here's the advantages, but what are the potential pitfalls? And just raising those it'd be an exchange back and forth between these organizations so that we can finally come up with, well, I don't think you'll ever finally, it'll always be an evolving process
of the dialogue.
Of having that dialogue, because there'll be continual improvements in technology, making new kinds of predictions and new kind of capabilities that are really mind-blowing available, which will then create new questions about privacy and other conclusions that people may use that data for. So like many technologies that come out over time, there's always a upside and a downside, and we always need to have that dialogue to continue to express concerns and then take both from precautions and do research and invest time in the companies to actually put those safeguards in place.
Because I think when you look at, I'm sure everybody's familiar now with the big Equifax security hack. That's millions of people's data that was not protected, and that has now been secured by whomever. So it is a balance, I think, and it's always this running, you want to create new technology, but then how do you protect it? How do you protect individuals' privacy and all of that? So very, very interesting.
It is. And so we know that there are larger companies in town that have teams of people who can work on this. It's also influencing what our startup community is choosing to work on. What are the themes you're seeing there? When we encounter entrepreneurs, sometimes there's this I want to do this, but it's really going to allow me to collect data. So maybe there's a way I could monetize all the data that's going to come from the fact that I have,
the data, right?
XYZ population telling me all these things about themselves by virtue of using my app, right? What are you seeing with regard to people's interest in now very specifically designing ways of collecting data? And it's the data that's the value, much more than the primary service that the consumer might be seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, you oftentimes see some small startups enter into a market and disrupt that particular industry. And in the current day, that's a lot of times powered by data. So you can see a lot of initiatives where startups are thinking about, how do I add value to the end user of this application or this business by providing helpful services from analyzing the data that's collected, not just personal to that person, but then, there's a lot of times anonymous type of aggregate data that just reflects common relationships and helps to save time and share interests.
Well, it's funny because I was just looking at on television today. iPhone just released their newest, hottest version, right? $1,000 phone, right?
Swanky.
But what they're saying is this is a computer at your fingers, and you use this every day for many hours at a time, every day.
Yep.
And what he said, who's the CEO of Apple now? I can't think of his name. But what he was saying was, we can now take, if you want to buy a car, and instead of just Googling and finding, car places, we can give you the augmented reality of actually being in that car and driving that car, which didn't exist now. So
you mean they're going to eliminate the test drive? Damn.
My husband will love it, okay?
Sometimes technology just moves too fast. What can I say?
But it's going back to, taking, machine learning, taking augmented reality, artificial intelligence, putting this all together and putting it at your fingertips. I think what you guys are doing and highlighting at StampedeCon, I think is very interesting. And if people want to come out and learn about all these different technologies, what's going on in these different fields, your conference is someplace for them to come.
Yeah, that's definitely our goal. Specifically with the upcoming Artificial Intelligence Summit.
I can't wait for that.
You're going to learn just enough lingo to go there.
I'm going to go
part
there.
Of the crowd?
Absolutely.
Okay. Look for her there.
I can tell you that everybody that uses, whether it be Facebook or other things, and the people will tag images or they'll do other things. Yeah. You're really helping to train a lot of machine learning, deep learning, and all these different kinds of models that are being put out there for things that are eventually making their way into helping create other opportunities like self-driving cars or this and that are you're training image databases, you're labeling those. There's obviously facial recognition that we talked about with the new phones that they want to be able to feel like they can authenticate you based off of this. A lot of that's they only have confidence in that, I think, based off of being trained, this data being trained over so many clicks from so many users and so many different sources. And so all of these activities that we participate in from all these different apps, and many times are contributing to making this technology advance more quickly. And a lot of that, then we'll talk about some of those techniques at the Artificial Intelligence Summit in October, whether it be from what industries are using and how they're using it. Anywhere from aviation to medicine to geospatial applications of artificial intelligence, over to certain tools and techniques such as TensorFlow and Keras and other ones that are common in this emerging area.
You need to learn that language before you go on this.
See, I'm going to the part of the conference that's talking about how the technology is being used in the industry. So
we got at least 2 tracks. Is there a third?
Yeah, the third is really just in like an organizational or operational. Sometimes there are challenges, especially if your organization hasn't yet adopted it. Talking from as a contrast to a startup who's focused on leveraging something right away. If you are already an established organization, and this is one of the goals of StampedeCon as well, is across all of our events, is to bring a familiarity and examples from other organizations as to how you can implement and take advantage of these, and really to get up to speed on all the different tools and techniques that are available for adopting, in this case, all the artificial intelligence technologies that are helping to enable decision management for tasks that perhaps you're already familiar with in your business and have a lot of expertise. You just can help to automate those by leveraging some of these machine learning technologies.
Okay, tell me, how did you come up with StampedeCon? How the hell did you come up with that name?
You know what? I love it.
I do too, but I just want to know, how did you come up? Were you watching a Western? Or what the hell were you doing?
Everybody's knocking down his door.
Yeah, it's a stampede.
It's a stampede.
There you go.
Well, I mean, it definitely relates to a stampede, and I'm glad you asked that, because it doesn't really relate so much when you hear the name at first into big data and Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. Yeah. But it just came when we were thinking about names. At the time of Hadoop, there had an elephant logo was its logo, and then there was other tools that started coming out. One called Pig, another one was Hive. Its logo was kind of like an elephant bee. So yeah, there was a lot of animal related logos, and every day there was some new tool coming out, and it really felt like a stampede of technology. So we called it StampedeCon.
That is great.
Love it.
Really cool.
We always like to hear the stories of how people came up with the names for their company. And now you have a cool name for this conference. Tell us again, when is the conference?
The StampedeCon Artificial Intelligence Summit is our next event, and that's October 17th.
And then our listeners can look for the IoT and big data again in the spring and summer of 2018.
That's right. The Internet of Things Summit, the IoT Summit, is in April typically. And then the Big Data Conference, which focuses on building the infrastructure and architecture to support all of this data, is traditionally in July.
Where is it? You just told us what day it is. Where is it?
It's going to be held.
Or is this like what do they call those things? You got to go around the city and figure out where it is.
Oh. No, this has one specific
It's not
location.
being hidden like a speakeasy. Right. He wants people to go there.
There's no secret password to enter.
Right.
It's actually right on the campus of the Washington University Medical School at the Eric P. Newman Education Center.
Very convenient. Centrally located.
Yes.
Awesome.
Is there a cost?
There is a cost, and the fees, they're listed online when you go to register.
Okay.
And where would we find that? What website should folks go to?
Well, that'd be StampedeCon.com.
Awesome.
There you go. Easy.
So one of the things I also heard Gary telling us is that even if you're not sure how this fits for your industry yet, or you're really not sure how you would even introduce this to the company you're working in, this would be a great place to test the waters and see how other people are using it. So and connect. Absolutely. So if your boss came in today and said, how are we leveraging big data to be competitive in the new environment, and you had to look up big data, and then you were like, I don't know.
Right.
This is the place to go.
Going to StampedeCon.
Because we all have those times.
There you go.
When folks come in our office and say, what are we doing about? Fill in the latest trend.
Exactly.
And
absolutely. This is definitely, aside from the great content, and then we're so lucky to have these speakers joining us, a lot of it is about the community and connecting. And there's been so many people who have helped make StampedeCon possible over the years from the community, especially here at the Artificial Intelligence Summit. We have a lot of great community support that has helped us both in identifying all the great work that's going on and helping to form those speakers. But then a lot of the people who are attending and will be connecting with each other, there's always a lot of great stories that come out of people who met each other and started some sort of either an endeavor or just something helpful when they connected. So, I mean, that's a great thing, and that's really what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for making time to talk with us, to tell our listeners about StampedeCon and all the opportunities, and frankly, for creating a community, because we always are talking about the importance of finding your people and hanging with your tribe, because that energizes the work that we do in the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Changing the way you view new ventures, igniting your thinking about entrepreneurship. It's entrepreneurially thinking. Get connected and discover more. Visit our website for show notes, resources, information about our guests, upcoming events, and of course, all your favorite episodes. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them for us in the comment sections, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The best way to show love is to share. Let everybody know that you're thinking entrepreneurially. So visit our website, entrepreneuriallythinking.com. #ETHINKSTL. Entrepreneurially Thinking is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.